The true son of the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Therefore he was condemned because he was accused of claiming kingship against the kingdom of Herod and the kingdom of Caesar. These points are again paralleled in the Gesar. Here we have the world king representing the great pattern of the law, who has come with the greatest strength and power that man can bring for the salvation of his people. He comes to preach the true doctrine. He comes as the warrior of the law, probably somewhat parallel to the Japanese concept of Fudo-myo, the flaming, demon-like appearance of Buddha. He comes as the avenger and the defender. He comes to warn the world that no man can break the law and survive. But in this case, his enemies raised against him not only the fault of claiming temporal kingship, but ridiculed him as a pretender. I think we can see this working out in the story of man's philosophy also. How many today would believe, for example, in the immutable operation of rebirth and karma? How many would accept the fact that the universe is a great moral structure, a great ethical complex, that it is in truth and reality the absolute wisdom syndrome, that it is the self-sustaining, self-managing, all-governing power? How many would acknowledge that we are the citizens of a moral universe, and that we cannot with impunity break the rules and the laws? This was more or less the dilemma of the Gesar. For like universal law, he was ridiculed. He was ignored. Every effort was made to destroy his empire. It was the empire of truth. Everything was done to betray him, to pervert the law. Men claiming in their selfishness that there was no law but their own ambition, turning to the law to destroy it in order that they could maintain a world of ignorant superstition and fear. Thus, his subjects, over-influenced by their temporal leaders, turned upon Gesar of Ling in the same way as the people of Jerusalem, aroused by the priests, turned upon Jesus. And those that had first glorified then cried out, "Crucify." This was paralleled very closely in the Gesar story, but with this one difference, that in the Gesar of Ling episode, the personality is very thin, and underneath it, the pattern of the meaning is rather obvious, more obvious perhaps than where we build a strong historical situation, which we are most prone to accept. But in the Gesar of Ling, the king of the law is, of course, the agent of Shambhala, the city of the law. Gesar of Ling was ordained in Shambhala to be the instrument and vassal of the law. He was therefore sent forth to defend the law, to be its hero, to preserve it against corruption, to strive for it, live for it, and if necessary, die for it.
He was appointed as
He
a
was
God
therefore
in his great
a holy soldier.
human and superhuman
He was, as we say it in Europe
to take
so
care
many
of
times, defender of the faith.
upon the law and understand
And yet the conspiracies rose against him.
the flowers and plants
And in many instances, these conspiracies would have succeeded had it not been
and how they could
that in the moments of greatest emergency,
mankind took
the
over
apparition of Padmasambhava,
the laws of nature.
the projection of the wizard teacher,
He saw it was
came to him,
competition,
counseled him,
handfuls to
and
travel
gave him that Merlin-like instruction.
bestowed.
Here we also almost see or sense the presence of Gunamon, the old knight of the Parseval cycle.
Morally good.
Padmasambhava remained the instructor, the Merlin, the wise man,
On the side of the Mount of Olives,
and in most instances was able ultimately to enable Gesar of Lin
Ten Commandments
to achieve the purposes
in many
for which he
different
had
ways.
come into the world to fulfill.
The virtues of one
As
faith
time went on, of course, the great battle,
and philosophy
which in the Nordic cycle ends in the Ragnarok, the end of the old world and the end of the world of the gods,
spiritual reality,
closed in upon Gesar of Lin.
tearing apart the single.
He won all the battles, but he lost the war.
We are all part
He went on and on, struggling, striving, more and more enmeshed in the mysterious sorcery of circumstance.
a divine principle at the source of
In a wonderful, mysterious way,
finally will and
he again parallels the problem of modern ethics.
materialism developed in
We
society.
speak of
The
justice,
individual
but we are unjust.
strengthened his own
We
agency
speak of honor,
and
but we
reached
are
the
dishonorable.
universal plan.
We talk of law,
He decided
and
that
then we
he would
compromise
make
it.
history.
So thus we, in one moment, support Gesar of Lin, and in the next moment we betray him.
Knowledge of the reality,
All the intricate and wonderful happenings of this life
giving it authority over
are, to the Tibetan and Mongolian mind,
physical empire.
proper subjects for infinite fabulizing. And we can see why this would be true. Any instance in human life, any circumstance in which any creature passes,
We could achieve all
would be one of the innumerable adventures of Gesar of
as
Lin.
this concept gradually
Because
evolved.
Gesar, in this sense, is every man. It's the miracle play of that name.
Concept has begun to fall apart.
Gesar of Lin
Obvious fact
is our problem. The days we spend, the nights we walk the floor.
without understanding
Gesar is the little conspiracy which affects every one of us.
God, when we have
For he is the image of our common problems. He is the image of our common struggle,
all we are in an
our fight for survival against the closing pressures of adverse circumstances.
in entering into
Everywhere the hero
that is
struggles on, only to finally fall under the blows which he cannot
why
survive.
do we feel it's important
And the whole pattern was, of course, established by Buddha in the beginning. He told firmly that the doctrines would gradually vanish from the earth,
corrections in our own behavior
that men would therefore have
the
to
survival of the
wait
planet on which we live.
whatever patience their karma could provide
Destroying ourselves
until the advent
first
of the
time
next.
in recorded history. There's always
After having passed through all the adventures and
we could
vicissitudes
destroy a family,
of a very
a race,
intensely diversified
been in a
career,
position to turn
Gesar of Lin finally came to the end of the story.
Something
In one way or another, the world hero always dies.
not because this was the original
Because this is a Buddhist world hero living in a world of Buddhist conception.
foundation of
He would not die of the sword,
so we are trying to explore
nor would he naturally do so in the symbolism as it would apply to Eastern religion and philosophy.
foundation upon
We
which
find Gesar of Lin
future for us all.
seated upon a rock,
We must accept religion
within four of those who had been true through all the
as a
ages,
major cause of trouble
his
from the
four
beginning.
nearest and dearest
He was
friends.
able to cause
They sat
correction
together
of
in
his own
meditation.
mistakes. it must put
Suddenly
straight
there was a
those
great
things
flash of
which
light.
it itself has made
The
crooked
five
and
disappeared
unreasonable.
together.
We
And
therefore
all that
say
remained
that if we look
was the
carefully,
rocks
we will
and
find
their
that
empty
close
robes.
to the wars that were
They had
fought
gone
at the beginning of the present
back
century,
into the mystery
the wars
of
dominated
the
or
Shang
motivated by
Shambhala
religion or
of which
justified
they
by
had
it.
come.
We have had
And
many
there,
wars
according to the legend, they still wait.
committed in the name
Wait
of
for the
God.
fulfillment of the end of the
Crusades
prophecy,
into the Holy Land,
the cycle that must yet be
rescue
fulfilled.
the sacred site of Jerusalem, and
Now, the prophecy of the Gesar Khan goes on in this way. After it was obviously impossible to achieve at that time the fulfillment of the world's desire, a prophecy was given that the land would come under great evil, that one by one the houses of wisdom would be deserted or destroyed. Little by little the teachers would be persecuted. The monasteries would be empty. The books would be burned. And all that had been a great and wonderful world would return again to the desert from which it had come. And in the transformation, the keeping of the world would pass to the despot, to the false one, to those who reviled the law, betrayed it, and those who martyred its saints. And there would be a great and terrible darkness, a darkness of hopelessness. The body of the faithful would be scattered in many lands beyond the borders of the world. Early in the present century, the situation in Asia became increasingly acute. Travelers who visited not only Tibet, but traveled along caravan routes, men exploring like Roy Chapman Andrews, or seeking the mysteries of the old culture like Sir Orlstein. These men camped with the pilgrims, camped with the merchants on the caravan route. And as early as about the time of World War I, legends began to flow along the caravan route. Legends to the effect that a great crisis was coming, a crisis that men had never known before. And the oracles, the living prophets of Tibet, began to speak of these. And everywhere it seemed that the world was rushing on to catastrophe. A catastrophe greater than men had ever known. But the Mongol and the Tibetan seem to have a faith that we do not have. They seem to have hopes and convictions that have not sunk very deeply into the consciousness of Western man. But even these poor wanderers from the sand and under the stars had something of a deep, abiding faith in them. And the rumors kept coming along, the reports that the great sessions of the immortals in the luminous palace of Shambhala, that the wise and the good and the noble of all the worlds were gathered there, that the Buddhas of the 10 regions had assembled in solemn conclave in the mysterious house of the law, that this great light shone forever from the rampart, and the wind horses carried the messages to the other corners of the world. The report was that the time has come for the appearance of the King of the world, that he must come in a strange and wonderful way like the baptizer of old,
is struggling for
crying out, "Prepare the way of the Lord and make his paths straight."
the actual Spirit of God
But
is something
the edict of the law was
either common words
that the great armies of the light
on language. That is the
were to unite against the armies of darkness, as happened in Egypt,
we cannot
when the
overcome
hosts of Typhon finally came face to face
or infer.
with the sons of the Golden Hawk.
We therefore worship the
Here was the Armageddon.
not realizing
Here was the great war.
in spite
Here was the final alignment of good and evil.
there is only one creating
That
God.
in the vanguard of the army of the law
There is no reality
was to ride Gesar of Ling,
and there is no escape
who had waited for a long time
divine purpose
for the
for
day.
which this world was fashioned.
And with him would ride
Created the world.
his generals and his captains,
They created all the
those who had waited patiently in the Tushita world for the coming of the King of the world.
One
And this
infinite
mysterious power
benevolence. One
was to ride forth with the armies,
existing always for the fulfillment of its own
and
purpose.
then beside the campfires men speculated out under the Mongolian stars. What does this mean? How shall we interpret it? Why do we hear that the Gesar Khan is about to return?
We are perfectly entitled
How do we know that he is to liberate us
but
from
let us
bondage?
strive to achieve
How do we know that he is to plant the banners of the law upon the highest ramparts of the east?
another name.
That his flag shall fly,
Mythology
and the red
in which all
crested
the gods in heaven fight
spears
all the nations of the earth.
with their yak-tail
No
pendants
fighting gods over the
would be
city
seen
of
again.
today as the deity
What is
of
this
the
secret army
walls of Troy.
that was to rise from the dust,
The law and his own
that was to be embodied
These
from the shadows of old
have
things?
been sanctified and
This
justified
secret army to be immaculately conceived,
to perpetuate misunderstanding.
should rise
To
finally
some degree at least,
as
nearly
the
all
protectors and the
permit
keepers of human destiny,
of some type of
a new order of chivalry.
misunderstanding.
Now, some of the Mongolians,
Differences
Tibetans,
in basic principles
the people of North India,
are treated.
and the Chinese of the 5 provinces,
No reality in
they were foolish people. They were not all ignorant
some ways to create
camel
a
drivers.
process of truth to carry
So
forward.
they could not just believe in a legend
And among all the
by which there would suddenly appear before them an army such as might have been raised 1,000 years ago by the banners of Genghis Khan.
of discovery,
They could not believe this type
heavens above us
of coming.
are not at war
There had to be
with
something
hell
else.
as well as with the
The
other.
coming of the King of the
So
world
when we try to achieve this,
had to have a meaning
I think it's probably
deeper
the first
and more valuable than this.
is to realize that there are 2 ways
And
of
so
finding
these
God. That is
speculations
the ways
spread
of
into the philosophy itself
ways of
in Japan,
and revelation.
Korea, among the Buddhists of the Diamond Mountains,
For the individual,
even among the saints and mystics of Nepal, northern India.
he cannot find the security that
Speculation
in the
was brought finally into harmony
world around us.
with the teaching itself with which the whole project was involved.
We know perfectly well
The only answer that could possibly mean
not
anything
really
was
actually
that
believing what he says he
a
believes.
host of
He
entities,
claims to believe that
souls,
he is part
would
of
come
one
into the
family,
world.
but he is just going to exert
This
his own-
host of souls would arise from a certain and peculiar chemistry.
his own activities, so he
But in this desperate time,
believes that we should
the patient ones,
so he doesn't marry.
the armies of the
We
Lohan,
do every day, claiming
the
that
disciples
that are real, but
whose
these
number
laws
was beyond legion,
is the most important thing that we claim.
they would be the ones who would become the soldiers of the King,
The individual believes first
here, everywhere upon the earth,
to be
at a
himself,
certain time, and according to a certain law.
freedom upon those around
There would be an influx
him. Last analysis, the
of
only
enlightened souls.
individuality of which we are capable.
These enlightened souls
We have
would be the
a
arhats,
mistake.
if we want to call them
In
that.
realities, there is no freedom.
That incredible array extending
How can you
beyond
escape from truth?
the power of vision
Why should you want to?
in the magnificent apocalyptical production of the lotus of the good law.
Because he has an unreality of his own
These
to cherish.
would be the awakened
He
ones,
wishes to do as he please in a world
in whose nature the seeds of eternity had been sowed.
we see around us today.
For it was said, or believed,
Of
and the all old Jataka tales of the embodiments of Buddha carry the same message.
and we also see
Believe that in the course of ages, in the vast cycles of time which have preceded our present day, in every
now
generation,
we realize that there's another end we
seeds
haven't
of
even guessed,
truth
and that
fell
is
into
a
the
possible
souls of men,
world conflict in
beauty
Germicide.
and of hope.
It's a decay
These are the bija or bija
which we
seeds,
can
the
manufacture
seeds
to
of Buddha.
destroy each other.
The Buddha is nothing but a
It should
personification
sober somebody.
of the world truth.
It should represent
Now into the souls of men fell these
to
little
destroy himself and his world.
soul seeds.
Now all of this is not really due to the
But
fact
some of
that
these seeds
bad.
fell upon sterile
It is
ground
not
and they
due
died.
to the fact that some
And
beings
some of these seeds fell in the fields, and the birds of the air devoured them.
It is simply due to
Some of these
certain
seeds
basic
fell upon
attitudes
good soil
which the human being has
grew
carried with him since
and
the
multiplied
beginning of existence.
in a
He has
wonderful
been
way.
warned of a million times.
For there is nothing greater or more wonderful than the multiplication of the
These
mustard seed.
mistakes invariably and inevitably
So those in whose souls the seed of the law had been planted,
but he never realizes that he
in their various embodiments, were not aware of this.
can cure them.
They have no
In other
knowledge of
words,
it.
if we wish to survive as a
The
world,
mind
we've got to stop
that awakened with birth did not tell them of the old seed.
self-satisfying way of
Seed was in the heart,
we have now
and in
followed.
this it was good seed.
We cannot keep on watching.
And in the hearts of these
We cannot
there
keep
gradually
on watching
developed
all
or
the
unfolded the
and
tree of the
learning
soul,
nothing from them. And
as
under
mentioned in the
temptation to do the
mysticism
same thing
of
ourselves.
David.
The time has
There is
come
much of
for
this
us to
same
discover
concept hidden in the writings of
value
Meister
in
Eckhart.
our own nature and do something
Those in
about it,
whose
and
souls
be
the
able to
seed
build
had
the
found
new
good
world
resting
that
place,
we so gravely hope to find.
experienced transformations which they did not understand.
Start a new attitude.
In a
of
wonderful
value.
way, they became
Now what
what
we
the Bible might
really
call the salt of the earth.
we need is what most
They have within them
socialist countries
a great
now
power,
they are
gradually
discovering
growing
that
up,
without ideals,
the power
they are going to go down.
to serve and to
Most
know
of
and to
these so-called
sacrifice
successful,
for truth.
communistic
They
states
became
are
the
in
great
desperate trouble.
Constructors.
And the only thing that
Wow.
can take them out of trouble is the thing
They
that
are the
is
ones who gave us the laws.
creative ideas,
And in Buddhism,
dedication to principles.
all the great
Principles they
teachers
try
of
to
the world
dedicate themselves to
are the ones in
so
whose
far
heart
down on the list of
the good
reality
seeds
that
have
they
been
could not
planted.
possibly accomplish the end.
Buddhists would not hesitate
Therefore, we
to
now
say that
find
Pythagoras or
actually,
Plato
on all levels, a
or
bankruptcy
Michelangelo
of
or
materialism.
Leonardo were all
With it, the bankruptcy
the
of
ones
all
in whom the
economic,
seeds have been planted.
profit abuse.
They didn't
All
know
these
it,
things are here.
but something in them
We've
longed
got
for
to do
beauty.
something about them. If we wish
Something
to
in
bring
them
this
sought
forward
justice,
to the 21st century, we've
sought a
got
better
to
way.
survive.
When these
Those
seeds
who are now
sprinkled
coming
so
into our
freely
lives, into our world, small children,
also
must
fell
face
into
this.
humble hearts,
We may be with them for a
into
while,
kindly people
but if the world
who never
is going to
achieved
inherit
distinction,
the substance of our mistakes.
but who lived every day a little more kindly than their neighbor,
Rather than a legacy,
more ready to sacrifice,
decay, and pain.
more easily brought to
Our
realize
religion.
the beauties of wisdom,
Recognizing
more ready to develop the eternal emotions which alone are justified: compassion,
constructive belief.
appreciation,
He has to make a
realization.
statement to himself. He has to
These
live, and he has to live.
were the army of the light.
He has to either believe
For in the great
the
emergency,
principle of good,
the light
or
was in them.
does not believe that.
And in the day of the return of Gesar of Ling,
consequences of that
he would call forth
acceptance.
the light in the soul.
And you can answer them
He
very
would see in the souls of all those who possessed it
The
the
mistakes are
flickering flame
already
of the doctrine,
bringing a harvest of pain
in
and
some
misery.
strong and in others
They are
weak.
forcing the change of
But they
place.
are his army.
They are leading away from
The
all
army of those who
experiments
refuse to
that we
die,
talked about, and are
who refuse to give up beauty,
individual, the
who
mother,
have died perhaps
all
100
child
deaths of pain,
praying for peace.
but will not die.
He does not want to see her
Each
die,
time they come back,
and become
the little jewel shines more brightly, the
These
blessed
things we
symbol
can see the
of the
mistakes
blessed
of what
law.
we're doing. They're
So
coming
these
in
thoughtful
by the
say,
millions. We
these,
can see all of the
in humanity
powers
itself,
misused.
these
And now we have
people,
a
these
nice
souls,
10, 12 years
perhaps
to try to do
they are
something
nearer to us than we
to
realize.
change this fallacy and
And
make it
perhaps
right. To have
that
some
same
kind of
light is
sense
in our own
for the
soul.
future. We've
But
got
if
to
this
begin to
be,
recognize
then we are banded together
between
to
doing
form the
as
army
we
of the
should
Heshepti, the sons of the
or
light.
doing as we should and
In
surviving.
a certain time,
There's going to be a clear
when otherwise things would
little
fail,
by little we are building an arsenal
these would be called,
for survival.
and out of space they would come in a great army to be embodied.
Therefore, we
When
now
they are
have
born,
a period of a
They
decade
would
or
not
more
have the
in
slightest
which
idea of their
determine
destiny.
that arsenal shall
It would all be wiped out as it was wiped out of the mind of Gesar of
this
Ling.
type of solution. We will not
But
believe that we
these
get rid of an enemy by
could
killing
not
him.
refuse their destiny.
We believe that we will get over
When
a
the
nation
time comes,
by invading it.
they will,
We will find that all our destructive purposes
reminded
come back on our heads
in a mysterious way
under the eaves to roost.
of the duty they are here to perform.
To do
And when the word reaches
that
them,
which can only be accomplished by
they will awaken. That is, they will awaken within themselves.
is the one
This does not mean that they may necessarily still know
lights us
why they were born.
contemplate the mysteries
But they will know that
we have
they were
eternal
born,
space for
and
science,
that this call is the most important thing that has ever come to them.
politics, but we also
So they will rise
eternal mysticism
and follow
survival.
in the way of
Have
the
to
call.
find our way home.
The call itself,
Find our roots.
of course,
And these roots are
is
not
a
in
strange projected phantom,
stock exchange.
this embodied bodhisattva,
The integrity of
Gesar of Ling.
Now, where are these
He symbolizes the awakening.
They're natural
When he arises and speaks,
quietly in the inner
when he gives the great battle cry from the ramparts of
soul of a
Shambhala,
human being is the
then
repository
those
of that
who are waiting
which is
will
necessary
rise
for
with
the
him.
redemption of the personality.
They will instinctively and inevitably become the army of light.
Savior. And
For this they were born, whether they know it or not.
is the
For this they have lived countless lives, whether they remembered them or not.
So we
For
know
those
that
who
within each
form this army are the ones that somewhere, sometime,
this power
vowed
is our redemption.
that they would discover the
This
truth.
is our mysterious deity.
And all that
This is the power that
living which they have passed through
that can
has
raise
had a
the
strangely refined something about it, because they were born each
nerves
time
and feeds the multitude.
with this instinct for reality.
And it is the annual
But otherwise we cannot tell them.
world, so-called.
But we do know that in this world some men live
It
for
is the
power
Christmas
and
principle
others for kindness.
each year.
Some seek worldly honors and others reject it.
Authority over the
Some
body,
feel that success is everything, and others choose quiet lives of learning.
symbol of
No one knows just why,
of the human
but it is in the calmer of these beings. It is in the core of them.
of the human soul.
For in some
Actually,
are the soul
we are
seeds
therefore all
shining more brightly
of our
than in
salvation.
others.
We do not have to
In
be
that day,
in order to
something
be
has to happen,
what we actually
by which, in a single moment,
by the soul within
those who have received
it is necessary that at that
the
moment
call and have become embodied
the formation be
as the sons and daughters and children of a generation,
the symbol
will
of
suddenly
the dominant
hear the voice of leadership.
of the eternal over the temporal.
They will hear
The victory of
the
eternity
mysterious
over the illusions of time.
order,
All of these things
which in the echoes of ether and in the mystic vibrations of things
it's time to let inner
comes
space
forth
conquer outer
in the
space.
heart of the Kala
And
Chakra.
inner space is soul. It is the
They
most
know that the time has come to turn the wheel of
soul
destiny,
in the planet, in the sun,
and they will rise, and no army on earth can defeat them.
and in the beast, and in the
And what will be the kind of war that will be led
there is a power
by
of
the
life
hosts of Gesar
struggling to fulfill itself.
The scholars tell us, and the old yogins who have knowledge
There
of
is no
these things,
principle of evil,
that this will be no bloody warfare.
misusing good.
This will be a strange, fatalistic war of light.
The greatest of use of all.
In this war,
So we're trying to get ready for
there will be no way of telling
we've got to
friend and enemy.
one of them
from
is
the
we've got
outside.
to get spiritual
They will
value.
mingle together,
We've got to find ways.
but there will not be any definite,
that materialism
battlefield.
is the security
but there will be a rising of principle against compromise.
or ignoring
There will come forth a strong, powerful urge
here with the victory of corruption.
to make straight
We do not think of it,
the way of the Lord.
but we know that if an individual
And one by one, the despots will find their followers falling away from them.
to corrupt those principles.
They will not
Therefore, we need some kind of
who have
idealistic teaching
the
to
dedication.
bring to us.
From the outside, it may seem all a strange.
In many nations,
Freaks of
this does
circumstance.
exist to some degree.
No one perhaps will know why it all happened.
It is all being
But the
sacrificed.
cry or the voice of the great generalissimo of the world,
It is not certain, and the defense is
Gesar
impossible.
of Ling,
Therefore, we are just drifting along
can be
nearer and nearer
the voice of a great leader.
that we do not really want to face
Who knows?
or ignore the problems involved.
When
So we need
the Orient first became aware of Western history,
proper thing for young people.
and they heard the story of Abraham Lincoln,
This is one of our ways of escaping
it was commonly agreed that he was a
the more
Buddha.
laws we pass, the more corruption we have.
Whether he knew it or not wasn't
We do
important.
not have a
All
law
of them do not.
to teach young people how to live.
Within himself, somewhere, sometime long ago,
Of parents.
the
It is
seeds
the
of light
whole
were
self
sown.
learning from those who
For this light he lived.
learning to
If he
live
faced
right
with
from
this
parents
light, he
who live
died.
right. This is the only way it
He
can be.
was, in
No matter
all
how much
Eastern way of
corruption
thinking,
and,
one of the arhats,
and integrity
one of the great teachers of the law.
There is no social order.
It wasn't
that
important
corrects
whether he knew it or
the young
not.
person.
For it is only from the inside of things that you can tell.
The individual.
It is only those who have the inner eye that can know
In a very great statement.
the plan that moves behind the face of things.
Is more secure. than
But this was the
integrity
point under
of
consideration.
There is no nation
That
that
when
is
the great
than the most corrupt.
flying sky horses carried their messages to all parts of the world,
Correction here.
some would hear and know.
Comenius.
When the banners of Shambhala were unfurled, and the great Tibetan tankers showed the king of Shambhala stepping down from his throne,
System is a kind
it
of
meant
graduate institution.
that the day was near.
The child goes for
No one knew how near.
having received the basis of
No one knew when the great betrayal, the great crisis,
well,
in the moment when,
the parent doesn't
according to the Hindu belief,
know. The parent hasn't.
man reaches an extremity
The child's children.
which his wisdom is not great enough to assist him
the
to
first
meet.
line of defense against
That moment, the Lord of the world comes forth again.
This is one of the great problems we have to
Now we begin to sense,
We've got to start with
even at our present day, the coming of this
Before they are
extremity.
and we cannot do it by
We
legislation.
realize that
We cannot put a policeman.
not only are we
outside the
confronted
freedom
with a
of
great
law.
international
We
struggle,
cannot demand these things from
but that the
parents.
struggle is coming onto our streets, into our homes, into our hearts.
The integrities of this level,
The forces are arrayed strangely as though on a battlefield.
values of
There are no boundaries to this battlefield except boundaries of thought and ideals and principles.
the beginning of the child's growth.
Here we have
When it goes into school,
a knight errantry of nobility, striving like the Arthurian knights
how to live,
against the strange
how to die.
monsters of corruption.
In school, the child
All this we see.
at basic
We do not know how far it goes.
toward values,
But for some reason along the caravan routes, men knew it was coming. We didn't know, but they did.
of its world.
We thought we were going blissfully on our way,
There has to be
building a great material culture
be any in life.
that would bring heaven to earth.
Now we get to the point perhaps
But instead of doing so, it is threatening to bring hell to earth.
perhaps this child is already on its
We are no longer secure in these things.
propriety, simply on the
But we
basis
see in Asia itself the rising of this great
we
turmoil.
have another problem. That
We
of
were told long ago that the day would come when Tibet would be ravaged,
employers have a
when its holy ones would be destroyed, when its saints would be martyred, when its people would be scattered.
integrate the characters
But it would suffer also a diaspora,
individual who works
by which
the business
an innocent
itself being
people would be
dishonest or dishonorable,
cast to the winds.
simply adding
The
to
Tibetans
the
believed this.
and that
They knew it was coming.
adding
They saw it in the portents of the stars and the rattling of the oracle bones.
and
They knew it was coming.
mature in thinking.
So they also, by the same prophetic quality, made a kind of analogy that is very, very interesting. It's always interesting to find some small group of ethnic structure, some comparatively slight and fragile nation, likening itself to the whole world, seeing in its own destiny the destiny of humanity, and in its own salvation the salvation of all other men. Tibet had this also. And this they shared with the Eskimo. For the Eskimo believes that ultimately he will rule the world. There's a long way to go, but he may make it if present trends continue. To Tibet, their own country was a microcosm of the whole. The disasters that happened to them were disasters parallel in all other nations. To them, the preservation or restoration of Tibet became a symbol of the restoration of the whole world. To them, therefore, their present catastrophe is a symbol of world catastrophe. They are a little symbol of a great injustice. They are the small, helpless victim. But we shall know what day each one of us shall be a small, helpless victim. But Tibet has been long touched by the grandeur of a concept of the Mahayana school. According to the Tibetan, there are certain things we have to always remember. That all these disasters that arise through the perfect working of the law. Tibet at one time tried to conquer the world in military means. It had a vast domain, no bearing upon its present state. The old Tibetans say, those that were the days when we conquered by the sword. These are the days when we are conquered by the sword. The old wheel has to turn. That which lives by conquest dies in the hands of the conqueror. But it does not die utterly. Nature does not destroy to reprimand. Nature does not take the human soul and cast it into perdition because that soul has karma upon it. No, it is washed away by pain, washed away by suffering and by compensation. But as a result of that, there shall rise again that which is good and true and beautiful in all
Well,
things.
most of the mystics have come
The
about
gods themselves, according to Buddhism, cannot change the course of karma.
suffering, privation.
They fall under it
They've all
as well as
come
mortals.
to
But
martyrdom. The
karma
way
in
of the
itself
Lord
has
is
only
right,
one end,
but it is
the
easy
salvation
to
of all that
come
lives.
out. And while the little happen of
Or
violence,
peoples go down, cultures perish,
serious
men go to the
sacrifice
grave,
for the truth,
the great plan goes on.
for fulfillment
And this
and
great
purpose.
plan is toward
The individual
a better kind of world than we have ever known.
and honest
A world in which
may be a little poorer
the
in money.
growth
It will not
of the
be a
truth
world
seeds
we do
in
the
ourselves
gnashing of teeth when things go
will
wrong.
finally bring about
Actually,
the brotherhood of mankind.
the reformation of all
And Gesar of Ling is the soldier of this war.
we must find the fact.
He is the one into whose keeping is this strange pattern of retribution.
All problems,
He is the agent of karma.
and we're here in which there is a
He
solution
must bring things to the destiny that they deserve.
a fulfillment of
But
growth,
all the
stability,
time,
and peace as
he
a
is
result
fighting for the
of
light.
growing our own stupidity.
He is the armed warrior seeking for peace.
So we have all these things as part
He is the
of
general who knows that it is the first
Now,
duty of the
reason
general
that we should do all this
to
the
prevent a
hard
war.
way. We're always
In this symbolism,
simplify situations so
the
that
two
we
steps then
gain
become
the
obvious.
degrees of growth,
It is Gesar of Ling that must clear the way, must lead to the victory of right over wrong, must restore the great structure of the law, like the Krishna in his earliest embodiments. He must dive into the ocean of darkness and preserve the Veda, or the light of the law, from the darkness of the Kali Yuga.
All of them have a
So Gesar of Ling is the fighter. He is the one that must bring these things about,
in all of them. The
who
changes
must
in wording because
gradually
of language.
force the karmic
Changes in
pattern
customs because of
into its
difference in
proper
environment.
relationship with
But it
truth.
remains the same morally and
When
ethically.
he has accomplished
Always
this,
has been and always
he
will
will
be.
then lead his armies and his
There
generals,
is no religion in the world.
and they will line up in great files of glory before the ramparts
Cause and a time
Shang Shambhala.
compromise, various theologies
And they shall
become rich and worldly.
bring their glory to the King of Kings,
Splendid.
to the great Ahat of the color.
But when it gets up to this stage,
He then shall Gesar the
more
Khan
trouble getting
say,
into heaven than a camel
I
through the eye
have
of a needle,
prepared the
as
way.
we learn from the scripture.
Not by
Evidently,
bloodshed,
there is a needle gate, or was, in
but
Jerusalem.
by forcing
That gate was
the
so narrow that if a
clarification
camel
of
went
principle.
through, it had to take off its load.
My armies have risen against
Follow
compromise.
lesson. The camel
We have
could
been
get through,
tired
but what
of
it had
fighting
carrying with it
wrong.
could not.
There came into the world those who rose against evil and overthrew it, rose against corruption and cast it down, rose against tyranny, and tyranny is no more. Then, according to the ancient legend, the kings of the world, the great Ahats of Shambhala, will prepare for the next great cycle. In that time, they shall announce the coming of the Lord Maitreya. This is the body of the legend. Now, the thought of the thing is very important, I think. How shall we ever be able to solve the problem we see around us every day? The only answer probably that is possible is that at the appointed time, the great army of souls held in suspension behind the veil of life will move into embodiment together. If this happens at any time, then the generation that follows must be greatly altered. Then ulterior motive will not find its victim. For these dedicated souls will not be lured by the hypnosis of evil. They will not be corrupted by selfishness or self-centeredness. The moment we produce a powerful army of the incorruptible, corruption is gradually destroyed. So the Gesar Khan legend means to the Tibetans and the Mongolians that an army of souls waits to be born. And when the trumpet sounds, they will be born. And when they do come into the world, they will be the soldiers of the guardian king. They will be the soldiers of the great law keeper, the guardians of the temples and the sanctuaries, the Neo and the Tenno, all of the strange and wonderful symbols of the protectors of the inevitable. For each of these guardians stands at one of the four directions of space and is obligated to see that the great wheel is never destroyed, to protect value, that the valueless shall never triumph. And the Tibetans and Mongolians believe that this is the way, and that the moving into the human race of these wiser souls is the answer. Under normal conditions, these wiser ones are assumed to come in, one here, one there, according to the needs of times and places. But when the need is universal, when problems are no longer limited to nations or races or small parts of the earth, but the problems are the whole earth, then they cannot be solved by one entering here and another there to find the ear of a thoughtful ruler. Now the great legions of the Arhat, described in the Lotus Sutra, extending as far as the eyes can see, in every direction of space, these legions fade out of the heavenly worlds and are born as infants, to grow up, to pass through all experiences that we know, but to have within them the priceless treasure of the flaming jewel, by which in their own hearts they can never be corrupted. These are the armies of light. These are the soldiers of Gesar of Ling. And in the light of this, I think the whole story takes on a very dramatic and rather inspiring aspect. And perhaps you will find it worth thinking about. Thank you very much.